we destroyed locals with Dogmatika Invoked 5-0. What is up, all you beautiful people? It's I, AkemiTCG, back here with a brand new video. We killed at locals. I didn't think we could. Dragoon just came out, so I knew it was going to be really tricky because Dogmatika inherently doesn't really have a way around Dragoons besides Droplet and possibly a really well-timed Makaba. But a good player that knows when to use it in the gate with Dragoon is probably going to prevent all of that from happening. So how did I go 5-0? I will show you guys my matchups and pretty much all my weak points in every single one of the matchups, because there was no easy match. I'm going to be super honest. There wasn't a single match that was extremely easy. So I'm just going to go through it. But before I get to it, hi. If you're brand new to the channel, I'm a AkemiTCG, and I pretty much do every single Yu-Gi-Oh content under the blue. Bottom line is, I want to make high quality Yu-Gi-Oh content for all of you to watch. Also, at the same time, I want you to become a better duelist at the end of the day. So if you want to join me on this trip, go hit the subscribe button, go hit that like, and I got you. Let's get to it. We are back here in the den. Tifa is going to be our mascot today for the field centers. If you want your own custom field centers and or tokens, and you want to look at my catalog, use the link in the description to find out how. So anyways, I used the same list, practically the same list, barring one or two cards, and it's going to be in the iCard above if you have not seen the list. I am going to change a lot of cards or a couple of cards after I do some analysis based on these match results. Then I will be posting that soon. Anyways, match 1 against Super Quantal. So Super Quantal is definitely rogue, not the hardest deck to beat, to be quite frank with all of you. He was playing a 60 card Super Quantal deck. I looked at his build after. He's playing triple Dark Ruler, some hand traps. So I don't understand in a 60 card build why he makes those choices, but it's fine. Game 1, I open pretty much the clean combo. I opened both Ecclesia and Alistar, and he didn't have Ash, so I just popped off and won there because I did go first and I just interrupted basically everything he did. Game 2, I just bricked like a mofo, and I opened up like, I believe it was double Nibiru and double DD Crow, and that does jack against that particular deck. It's like not good against rogue strategies, so I was kind of bummed out there. And basically what he did was I activated Magical Meltdown. Let me see if I can find one here. I activated Magical Meltdown, and this legend chains Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell from Invasion of Chaos. And if you don't know what that does, is discard one card, negate the activation of a spell card that would activate, and it's a trap card. And for the rest of the duel, I cannot use Meltdown. So that really sucked. So he didn't even want me to get Alistar, so I pretty much didn't draw into a single tangible monster the whole duel, and I just lost because afterwards I believe I summoned one Alistar. He did something to stop it, and then he Kaiju Slumbers me and just kept poking for game, and I kept drawing to my hand traps, which were irrelevant after the fact. And then game 3, I did side in where I took out my Nibiru and my DD Crows, because in game 1 I was just being nice because I asked him if he wanted to side, and he said no. But after I lost game 2, then I thought it'd be a good time to start siding. And game 3, I just went first. I just opened up literally Alistar and Ecclesia, and that was pretty much GG. Usually if you open it, then opponent really can't do much. Game number 2, I played against Heroes, the kind with the Dark Calling and everything, and to be quite honest, I have no idea how to really prevent this deck from popping off. I feel like every time I do something, even if I need Nibiru, he can keep going. So I think game 1, I had like the mini luck where I Ecclesia'd and I misplayed extremely hard. So instead of sending with Maximus, I want to see if I can grab this real fast. So instead of sending the Shadal package with Maximus, I did send, what was it? Did have Schism, but I think I sent Apocalypse, and then for whatever reason I banished the Apocalypse to summon Maximus, and then afterwards I didn't put in a new Shaddoll target so I can summon Winda the next turn. So if I summoned Winda against him, I would have won that one. But what ended up happening was he ended up like face rolling everything I had. I really didn't have many outs to the hero deck, especially since it's amazingly good going second. So I definitely deserved the first game loss, simply because I just don't understand how heroes operate. I did have some hand traps in hand, but I couldn't quite figure out exactly where the choke points of heroes were, if that made sense. So in game 2, basically I outgrinded him with all my resources, and the only real misplay I made was when I used Invocation, I used my Secure Garden on Alistar instead of using his Adjusted Gold and Alistar. If I chose to do that, then he wouldn't have been able to summon Malicious Bane the next turn, and he would have been in big trouble. But I just completely didn't understand how heroes work, and he told me after the fact that I should have done that, which helped a lot. But nonetheless, I grinded him out really hard. He had no more resources in hand, in deck, and he just watched to go to game 3, and there was only 1 minute left in time. So since there was only 1 minute left in time, all I could really do is, I didn't get to choose who goes first because he lost. He went first, and his idea was he's gonna summon Dystopia and pretty much face roll me for game, like burn me for damage for game. Luckily in my hand I did have the impermanence, so I was good to go. We ended up drawing there, and we both agreed to roll on it to see who would win, because a draw would heavily impact our standings. So I rolled for it. He rolls a 1 and a 3, and the 3 was the cause of my thumb, and I was like, you want to re-roll it? He's like, yeah, sure. And he re-rolls it and gets a 2. So he rolls a 3 total, and I roll a 8 or 9, but it's really easy to beat a 3, and I got the win there. In match number 3, I pretty much opened this hand, which is kind of okay. I was playing against Cyber Dragons, and I didn't know what he was playing, so he had me go first, I believe, or won the dice roll and I went first, but nonetheless I went first. After the Meltdown, he ashes it, and then I'm like, okay, what can we draw? So I just set my Imperm, set my Schism pass, and he bricks as well because he just set 1 pass, and we kept doing that back and forth until eventually I drew into my Alistar, and I just started poking him for damage, and at one point I draw into my Flidis, and I just pushed for game that way. Game number 2, I sided pretty much against Cyber Dragons. One of the best sides. I knew I was gonna go second. No, actually, I did not know I was gonna go second, but I did side in some stuff like Evenly Match and Gamma Seals, because I had a feeling he was playing Dragoon. So I sided those in. I didn't draw into them, but basically what he did was steamrolled me. Turn 1, he summoned Infinity. Infinity, Verte, Dragoon, and I believe Rampage. I don't remember the last card, but he basically summoned those 3 cards, and I simply didn't have an out to it. I just drew into an Alistar, and my hand traps weren't relevant enough. I did have Ghost Ogre in hand, but however, it didn't come up throughout the whole entire duration of that turn. So that kind of sucked. Like, in hindsight, I thought about it, I'm like, if this was Valor, that would have been better. There's a lot less people playing Numeron now because everybody's so hype about Dragoon. Dragoon's hypothetically a lot easier to splash than Numeron. So I'm probably gonna take this out for Valor in the future deck profile. But nonetheless, on game number 3, after I got wrecked game 1, I just opened like the nuts. I opened 1 Ecclesia and 4 hand traps, and those 4 hand traps interrupted every single play he had. He couldn't do anything. Like, he dumps core, I DD Crow the core before he can resolve the effect, or activate the effect rather, and then it was just smooth sailing the whole time, because afterwards I started gaining a lot of hand advantage. I drew into Nadir Servant, and then I popped out for game. Match number 4, I played against Mekk-Knight Invoked, and it was actually one of my teammates, and he kind of couldn't outgrind my deck. I pretty much opened these cards. He won the dice roll, he had me go first. Alistar, Ghost Ogre, Impermanent, I believe a DD Crow, and some other irrelevant card. But basically, since I didn't draw into the Dragma engine, I just play with the Invoke engine, and I just invoke summon Makaba, do the bread and butter play, summon Makaba, and afterwards, when it was his turn, I pretty much interrupted every single one of his plays. Like, I had an Imperm set, so by the time he normal summoned his first card, which he didn't for a while, but basically I used the Imperm on his Mekk-Knight Blue, so he couldn't get Mekk-Knight Gear Suit in hand, and then he linked and summoned Sentinel, the Mekk-Knight Link, the Link 2, and he tries to grab, or rather he grabs War Legacy Succession. He activates Succession, and he targets one of his monsters in the graveyard to pop off, and I just DD Crow and banish it, and then next turn, or the next couple of turns, I just kept completely outgrinding him. I just kept poking with the Alistar, and since Alistar keeps recurring because of Invocation, I just summoned a second Makaba, and he couldn't do anything about that. So that was game 1. Game number 2 was relatively bricky. He opened double Gamma Seal, I opened double Mine, because I decided Mystic Mine against him. Because A, I know he doesn't like the card, so it slightly tilts him, which does help, and B, Mystic Mine is pretty good against Mekk-Knight Invoked because they tend to make a giant board with True King of All Calamities, and the really fastest way to hit it is Makaba, beta on the gate, and then do something about the Calamities. So you would just Mystic Mine it. It's just a really easy out, and this deck can plow through it with Mystic Mine. So anyways, he drew into double Gamma Seal, I drew into double Mine. We just kept breaking, and at some point I managed to top deck, I believe it was either Ecclesia or Floodis at the right time, and basically I just started poking him for game after the fact. That was pretty neat. So the final match, this is probably the most interesting match because I misplayed kind of. Like, I drew into Ogre. Like, my opening hand was Nibiru and I believe Ogre and something else, but I didn't draw into any of the package. I literally just set one in perm in the past, I believe. But basically he did something with one of his Pendulum monsters to summon attempt to summon Master Cerberus from his deck, and I just Ogre it, but he had Time Gazer Magician on the field, so I'm like, oh man, I forgot that, or rather, I've never read Time Gazer to be honest, so it actually protects his Pendulum monster from being destroyed, so I just wasted an Ogre for no reason. But he ended up summoning six cards on the field. He summoned way more than 5, and for whatever reason he forgot to summon Jackal King. He could have summoned Jackal King, but he chose to summon Master Cerberus instead because he just wanted to crunch and kind of like hit me for game. So by the time he enters battle phase, I just Nibiru him, and he completely ran out of resources in his deck. And afterwards, eventually I drew into something tangible, and once I drew into something tangible, the Alistar, then I popped off for game on game 1. So on game 2, what ended up happening was, let me see. So he got to choose who goes first. He went first, and I pretty much, what I did was I hand trapped him to death. Like, I had Ogre, I literally had everything what I needed, and I didn't draw into Ecclesia both games, which really sucks. But I did have Floodis, so I just waited till he summoned something from the extra deck. Ogre waited for his Servant, and also had an Imperm, and I set it on the right column. So by the time he activated Servant, which he put completely vertical from my column, he activated Servant, I used Imperm, he had a monster on the field, he Reasoninged into a magical Abductor, and I Impermed his Abductor so his Servant wouldn't resolve, and afterwards in the next turn I just popped up from there, and it was pretty much GG because at one point he had a Gravity Controller that he summoned the previous turn, and he summoned a monster, went to Cross Sheep, went into his extra deck, Pendulum summoned 1/2, and linked up to make Boros Sword Dragon. That's exactly 5. He puts my Makaba into defense, he calls battle phase, and I say Nibiru. And that was pretty much how the grand finals went. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this local report. I wanted to try to keep it smooth and simple, just do a quick idea of what matches I went through, how hard the games were. Honestly, some of these games were pretty darn hard. A lot of people in my locals do have their invite already, and I still don't, so I'm praying for it, guys. I'm praying for it. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed. I am AkemiTCG. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
The world ends now.